So at the end of the season, you end up departing the BBL. What
Mhm.
ended up being, a temporary departure.
Not even a full year.
So yeah, you end up signing in Slovakia. And
Yeah,
as you mentioned, that was assisted
yeah.
by
Andre.
Andre Jones.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
what made you make the move? And was it a situation where you were actively looking to leave Newcastle or?
I think probably about February, March, I kind of figured that I wasn't coming back
Right.
because we've done everything
Mm.
personally, and as a collective, it wasn't any more. I felt it wasn't any more room. What else mentally? What can get me motivated to play?
Yeah.
You know, same team, same philosophy, same system. They're going to guard me the same. They're going to do this, and and I got mentally. It was because I felt myself constantly feeling like I had to prove this, prove this, prove this, and it was draining. It drained me, and I felt that I needed a fresh start.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get too comfortable.
Right.
Because that's when injuries happen. That's when you start to decline, and I wasn't ready for a decline yet. And I felt like I had more that I wanted to experience. So I wanted to go to Europe, and then it ended up being Slovakia. Yeah.
Right. And then how would you compare, the standard in Slovakia to the
Oh
BBL?
man, it was. I mean, you see Europe
Mm-hmm.
games and how it's systematic, and the point guard walks the ball up, and he sets everybody up to run the offense. Then he goes sit in the corner. It was like I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it because we were good. We won the cup, we made it to the final and stuff like that. Like we were really good, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay, well, I'm gonna take like this is what you wanted because I wanted to feel as if I was starting all over. I didn't want to come in here like, okay, you won this trophy, you did this individually. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be just, I started from the beginning of my career, but I didn't want it to be that dramatic.
Yeah.
And
No, that makes
I
sense.
just sat in the corner, and he said, "You get an open shot, you got to make it.
Yeah.
So basically no create." He said it, but it wasn't convincing to me that he wanted me to do that.
Yeah.
So it was tough coming from Newcastle to that because I had to completely switch my mentality,
Right.
and that was my hardest adjustment. But I still did all right. I still did well. It wasn't like I couldn't handle it or I couldn't, you know, compete or anything like that. It wasn't that at all. It was just a different mentality I had to switch,
Right.
you know? So, yeah. Practices, the tour days, and the track, and the lifting, and just like, geez, just intense. It was always intense. Practice was intense.
Yeah.
It was totally different than England. That's why when I came back, my body's totally different than before I left.
Right. Is that
We,
so? Do you feel like you were in, a lot better shape out there, and like when you
oh,
were
for
playing?
sure, for sure, for
Mm.
sure.
Do you think the BBL could benefit from that sort of regime? Or
It depends on what players it is. If you take like the players that we've been in the league for that many years and stuff like that,
mm.
then I don't think we accept it because we know that you don't have to absolutely do that to win.
Yeah.
Like us running on a track, us lifting 2 times a day and practicing 2 times a day. That I don't think that was the 100% recipe for success. Like
Yeah.
it's needed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we need to be in shape. You need to be in shape. You need to lift. You need all the injury prevention stuff. But to that extreme that we did, I don't think that was needed.
Yeah.
But
No.
some form of it. So I think the BBL should, some form of it,
Mm.
of course, because it's good for us.
Yeah. Because I've always thought, that sort of, regime where where you're the two a days, the intense lifting, all that stuff. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot suited for young players, particularly
Yes.
those
Yeah.
18, 19, 20,
Yep.
21 year olds going in playing
Yep.
in the BBL. The only thing
Yep.
is like if you look at a lot of rosters, the majority of the players playing on the teams are 25, 26 and
Yep.
upwards. So
Yep.
like you said, I think some teams it might suit, other teams, like traditionally, Newcastle traditionally does have like an older roster. There's always,
Mm-hmm.
there's the Eddies and like the young players on the team, but
Yeah. Yeah.
let's keep it a buck. Like majority of the teams the team is usually 27,
Yep.
28 upwards. So
Yep. For sure.
you know what I mean.
That's tough though. It's tough. It's tough because you want young players and stuff like that, but then if you want to be super successful or anything like that, you want players that's already experienced.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of it's catch 22 that you can't have both. You can't have best of both.
Yeah.
You might get a 21, 22-year-old that's like super mature or anything, but he's missing just that experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of was our recipe.
Seeing all like the young players who have been on the end of the bench at the Eagles and stuff, it does pose like a common question around British basketball. I don't know if you're aware, but like there is this big topic about giving young players an opportunity, and I think you're right. I think if they're ready to play, then do you know what I mean? They should be given the opportunity, but the chances are they might have the skill set, but maybe they don't have the maturity, or they don't have something's missing. Do you know what I'm saying? And
yeah, but why is it just for basketball? They don't say that for some. And I'll just ask, why do you think that's just for basketball? They don't say that in soccer, or they don't say that in a workforce of, all right, well, we need to give these young kids a chance to run our business.
Yeah.
Like I don't get why basketball.
Do you know what? I'll try and keep my answer, because this is a topic I love talking about, but I don't want to spend ages. I think the thing with, if you want to compare football and basketball, firstly, with the infrastructure in football, kids are signed from when they're like 8 years old. So if you're getting elite coaching by the time you're in football, but if you're not getting elite coaching by the time you're 12 years old, chances are you're not going to make it in this country, or you won't play at the highest level.
Right.
Whereas with basketball, you rarely find a kid. You'll find a lot of kids who play basketball. They start at like 11, 12, if they're lucky. Like I only started playing when I was 13. There's a lot of kids who start playing when they're older. And if you're a big man, there's more room for you to sort of start later. But when you're a guard, you have to start younger. You have to start when you're 8, 9, 10, I think.
Yep.
So I think for us to get to a point where we're producing young players who can play in the BBL, we have to get to a point where they're getting elite coaching at a younger age. And that's to the point where like we're talking beyond, just doing the fundamentals, the dribbling, shooting, all that stuff. Like that should be taught, when you're 8, 9 years old. When you hit like 13, 14, that's when you should be start to, work on, the intangible part of basketball, the IQ, the decision making and all that stuff. Because I think a lot of the time, you get a lot of the, the best kids who are 18, 19, skill-wise, they're good enough to play in the BBL and maybe even start, but they don't have the IQ, the other stuff, the maturity, the mental capacity to be able to deal with being a professional basketball player at that age. And I think that's the biggest thing, I think, that holds a lot of players back from getting these opportunities when they're young. And I think it kind of coincides with, the fact that a lot of players end up going to America or going to other countries, when they hit 19, because, like you said, when you get to college, you can kind of be 18, 19 and not be a finished product, especially if you're a guard. You can develop your body, you can develop your understanding of the game in a college system. Whereas at 18, 19, chances are you're being pushed into the business of basketball where it's about results. You know what I mean? Where you have to perform night in, night out.
It's tough for the coaches, man. It's tough for coaches because, they get that pressure.
Yeah.
They get the pressure of, all right, well, these kids need to play.
Yeah.
And they get the pressure from everybody, from people around, people, that's in charge and stuff like that. But
yeah,
you want to win at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You want to win, But I 100% agree with what you said, though.
Yeah. And like you got to get that. I think the next step, for if we want to, get our young players playing, is we got to do a better job of preparing them, developing them to play. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereby when it gets to the end, to the pros, like in the BBL, like now it's not a question of do I have to jeopardize winning to let young players play and all that shit. It just becomes a case of right. I've got this kid who's 18. He's good enough to play. Go on, you're playing in the BBL now. And they're ready. But yeah, like I said, man, I could talk about that for hours, man. But we'll not.
I know. I just want to understand, Like, I have no opinion or anything. I just want to know
Yeah.
what you think as far as like you growing up as, in England and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
how did you feel about it? But
Yeah.
I want to talk about that right now.
Yeah.